Overseer Kaitsaral of the Thurvan hegemony had spent 11 of his remaining 12 wing joints reading the file, and he still could not make it cohere. The dossier was labeled Terran Conflict History, compiled for strategic assessment, and it had been delivered to his command throne aboard the dreadnought ascending certainty 3 planetary rotations before the fleet crossed into what the humans called the Jovian exclusion zone. His tactical analysts had flagged it as standard pre-engagement reading. What they had not flagged, what none of them seemed to notice, or perhaps notice and survive, was the pattern buried in the casualty appendices. In every human war, against every enemy, including each other, there were gaps. Deliberate inefficiencies, his senior analyst had labeled them. Moments where a human force held overwhelming advantage and did not press it. Evacuations permitted. Retreats allowed to complete. Weapons capable of greater destruction employed at lesser yield. He had asked his analyst for the strategic logic behind each gap. The analyst had run 3 models and returned with an expression Kaitsaral had not previously observed on the man's face, a kind of careful blankness that meant I found the answer and I do not know what to do with it. Sir, the analyst had said, in 43% of reviewed engagements, the restraint appears deliberate. Not tactical. The humans could have ended the engagement faster. They chose not to. Kaitsaral had dismissed this as sentimentality. A weakness. A data artifact of a species that had not yet fully understood war. Now, with 47 Thurvan warships holding position above the rust-colored sphere the humans called Mars, and with the human response fleet, all 19 vessels, sitting motionless between them and the inner system like a closed fist, he was less certain. Vice Admiral, said Warrant Officer Priya Venkataraman, her voice flat and precise in the way it got when she was holding something back. Thurvan formation is unchanged. No targeting locks dropped, no locks acquired. Vice Admiral Amara Osebansu did not look up from the secondary display. She was reading the same evacuation data she had read 4 times already, the life sign manifests pulled from Thurvan ship transmissions, cross-referenced against hull classifications. Of the 47 vessels in the enemy formation, 11 carried thermal signatures inconsistent with crew-only configuration. Denser. More clustered near the interior compartments. Civilians. Refugees, maybe. Or conscripts who had not chosen to be here. Still 41 viable targeting solutions, said Lieutenant Commander Dmitry Volkov, from the weapons console. His voice had the particular quality of a man who had been ready to fire for 6 hours and had not been told to. All solutions remain clean. I know, Dmitry. Admiral. Our orders permit engagement at. I know what our orders permit. Amara set the manifest down. She had memorized it already. 1,240 Thurvan non-combatant life signs, distributed across 11 warships. Hold. Volkov held. Kaitsaral had expected aggression. Every model predicted it. The humans were, by their own recorded history, a species that met force with force and escalated until one side could not stand. Their capacity for coordinated destruction was second in the known galaxy only to the hegemony itself, and the hegemony had the advantage of 3,000 years of disciplined expansion. The Terrans had achieved their current capability in less than a century of space presence, which was, frankly, the kind of statistic that had motivated this preemptive expedition in the first place. Better to break them early, the Grand Council had decided. Before they became something that could not be broken. His fleet had fired first, had struck the fuel platform above their 4th moon without declaration, partly as a test, partly as a message. The human response had been measured. A withdrawal of civilian infrastructure. A deployment of their defense fleet. 19 ships to his 47. No communication opened. No ultimatum issued. Just silence, and 19 warships that had not moved in 6 hours. Open a channel to their flagship, Kaitsaral said. His communications officer obeyed. There was a pause of perhaps 4 seconds, long enough for Quetzalcoatl to wonder if they would answer at all. Then the human appeared on his display. She was dark-skinned, somewhere in middle age by Terran reckoning, with the particular stillness of a creature that had learned to conserve motion. Her eyes, when they found his, were not afraid. They were not angry either. They were something he had a harder time classifying. Tired, perhaps. And certain. "Overseer Quetzalcoatl," she said. She pronounced his name correctly, which startled him. "I'm Vice Admiral Amara Osebansu. I'd like to talk before either of us does something we can't take back." "There is nothing to discuss," Quetzalcoatl replied. "You are outgunned by a factor of 3. Your council will surrender or your fleet will be destroyed. I offer you the simplicity of a clear choice." Amara looked at him for a long moment. "How many of your crew have families aboard those warships, Overseer?" The silence stretched. "That is not irrelevant. 1,240 non-combatant signatures," she said. "We've had them catalogued for 4 hours." A pause that felt surgical. "We haven't fired." Quetzalcoatl ordered the first assault wave deployed within the hour. If the humans had identified the civilian compartments and not struck them, it was either sentiment, which was weakness, or strategy, which meant they were waiting for something. Either way, motion was preferable to stillness. 31 fighters launched in attack formation. The human vessels activated point defense and returned fire with disciplined precision. Enough to blunt the wave, not enough to destroy the fighters completely. Quetzalcoatl lost 9 craft. The human ships took moderate hull damage and held position. They did not advance. "Curious," his tactical officer noted. "Their forward vessels have firing arcs that would let them." "I can see the firing arcs," Quetzalcoatl said. He could see them. The human flagship in particular sat at an angle that, were its main guns brought fully online, would permit a targeting solution on 3 of his capital ships simultaneously. They had not brought the guns online. He had watched the heat signatures. The weapons bays had not so much as cycled. "Second wave," he ordered. The second wave hit harder. 2 human escorts took critical strikes, one went dark along its port side and fell out of formation. Quetzalcoatl watched it happen and felt the clean mathematics of attrition beginning to close in the human fleet's favor. 19-1. The Terrans could not absorb this rate of exchange. And yet, the flagship still had not fired its main batteries. The transmission request came from the human vessel 4 minutes after the second wave cleared. He accepted it. Amara Osebansu looked the same, that bone-deep exhaustion, that absolute certainty. Behind her, he could see her weapons officer. The man had both hands resting on his console in the careful way of someone who has been told not yet so many times it had become a physical posture. "You just lost 11 more fighters," she said. "I want you to know that we marked all 11 ejection pods and we will transmit their coordinates to your fleet the moment this engagement ends. Your pilots will be recovered." Quetzalcoatl stared at her. "Why?" he said, and it came out less like a question and more like something pulled from him by force. "Because they're not why we're here." Her voice was quiet, the quieter kind that meant more certain, not less. "None of your people chose to be in this system, Overseer. You were ordered here. That matters. You are losing this engagement." "I know." "Then your mercy is irrelevant. It will not save you." "It's not for saving us," she said. "It's because it's right." She looked at him with those tired, certain eyes. "We know what we are, Overseer. We've always known. That's why we choose." She closed the channel. He launched the full assault at the second hour. All 47 vessels, full weapons discharge, coordinated across a 12-minute firing solution that his strategists had modeled as unsurvivable for a force of 19. What happened in the next 4 minutes? Quetzalcoatl would spend the rest of his life attempting to explain to the Grand Council, and would fail every time. The human flagship came alive. Not the disciplined, conservative fire he had observed until now, something deeper, something that had been held behind closed doors in a part of the vessel he had not detected, had perhaps been designed not to detect. The weapon signatures were unlike anything in the hegemony's catalog. Not new technology. Not unknown physics. Something older, refined, compressed, waiting. The kind of capability that accumulates when a species has been at war with itself for 10,000 years and has had to find increasingly efficient ways to make each blow count. In 90 seconds, the flagship's primary array targeted and disabled, not destroyed, disabled, the drives of 6 Thurvan capital ships. Not the weapons. Not the hull. The drives. With the surgical specificity of a creature that understood exactly where to cut to stop a thing from moving without making it bleed. Then it stopped. The weapons cycled down. The flagship resumed its position in the human formation, and the 19 vessels sat exactly where they had been for the past 8 hours, slightly more damaged than before, and still. Quetzalcoatl could not breathe. "Sir." His communications officer's voice had an edge he had never heard before. "The human flagship is transmitting a full data package. It's a pause. It's targeting logs, sir. Historical. Their weapons locks. From the beginning of the engagement." The package opened across his display. 4 hours and 31 minutes of targeting data. Every moment since the Thurvan fleet had crossed the exclusion zone, the human flagship had maintained live targeting solutions on his capital ships. The solutions updated in real time, cleaner, faster, more precisely calibrated than anything his own gunners had managed. Every firing window. Every moment of exposure. Unmarked. Unused. Not because they could not. Because the 1,240 life signs in his civilian compartments were still there, and the humans had seen them, and had held. At the bottom of the package, a final file. He opened it. It was the evacuation coordination data, the precise moment each civilian transport bay on his 11 populated warships would have been clear, had the hegemony chosen to move their non-combatants before the engagement. His analysts had put a timestamp on it. The window had passed 40 minutes ago. Amara Osebansu's voice came through, not on a formal channel, just audio, quiet, like someone speaking in a room they know is nearly empty. "We were waiting," she said. "That's all. We were just waiting for them to be safe." Quetzalcoatl looked at his disabled warships. Looked at his fleet, still intact, still capable, permitted. He looked at the 6 capital ships that could have been destroyed and were not. He looked at the record of 47 targeting solutions, held, hour after hour, by a species that had every reason and every ability to end this and had not. He thought about the file. The deliberate inefficiencies. 43%. He had called it weakness. He understood now that he had found the only word for it that felt like strength to a creature who had never once chosen to be less than it was. "Stand down," he said. To his fleet. To himself. The Ascending Certainties medical bay treated the recovered Thurvan pilots before the surrender documents were signed. Amara stood at the viewport of her damaged flagship and did not watch the ceremony. She watched the stars instead, watched the place, now empty, where Titan's fuel platform had burned, where her brother's ID tag had been recovered from debris 3 months ago and sent home to their mother in Accra in a steel case. Volkov found her there an hour after the Thurvan fleet began its withdrawal. "We won," he said. "Yes. You don't look like it." She was quiet for a while. Outside, the 6 disabled Thurvan vessels were being taken under tow by their own fleet. She had transmitted the repair coordinates personally, a final piece of documentation to add to the file. "My brother thought protection was simple," she said finally. "He thought it was something you did with your hands." Show up, stand between, hold the line. She watched a distant drive light fade toward the outer system. He wasn't wrong. The strategic analysts argued about it for 3 months. The military theorists wrote papers. The philosophers wrote more. None of them had a word for what the humans had done. The Thurvan language had terms for mercy as transaction, mercy as weakness, mercy as performance before witnesses. It had no term for mercy as proof. The hegemony did not return to Terran space. Not because they feared what humanity would do. Because they had seen, in 47 targeting logs and 1,240 living witnesses, what humanity had already decided, and there is nothing in the known galaxy more terrifying than a weapon that has looked at you, judged you worth saving, and chosen to remain in its sheath.